Hey everyone, you ever just get the feeling that we've lost the plot? I mean, in a really big way? It feels like all our conversations are just broken, like we're all shouting into the void and nobody's really listening. Well, what if the problem isn't about facts or data? What if it's about something much more fundamental? Something like the power of a good story. Let's get into it. I mean, just think about the last time you tried to argue with someone online. It's frustrating, right? It feels completely impossible. It's like you're not just disagreeing on the facts, you're operating in completely different moral universes. So, what is actually going on there? You know, this one Reddit comment just nails that feeling perfectly. It talks about this idea of emotivism, which is basically the sense that all of our moral arguments have just dissolved into expressions of pure feeling. There's no solid ground, no objective bedrock for us to stand on. It's just my feelings versus your feelings. So where did all this confusion come from? Well, one philosopher, Alasdair MacIntyre, had a pretty surprising answer. He argued the whole problem isn't that we lack facts or logic. The problem is that we've lost the narrative. We've completely forgotten that we are, at our very core, storytelling animals. So what on earth does it mean to be a storytelling animal? Well, for MacIntyre, stories aren't just for kids at bedtime. They are the fundamental way we make sense of everything: the world, our own actions, our entire lives. And understanding this is really the first step to finding the plot. MacIntyre had a great term for this: narrative intelligibility. The core idea is actually super simple. An action only makes sense, it's only intelligible, when you place it inside a story. Without that narrative, it's just a random, weird event. Let me show you what I mean with a couple of his best examples. Okay, so picture this. You're just sitting at a bus stop, minding your own business, and a total stranger comes up and blurts this out. It's bizarre, right? It makes no sense. But what if I told you he was a spy, and that was his code phrase? Or what if his therapist told him to say it to overcome his social anxiety? All of a sudden, the action makes sense. The story gives you the why. And it's not just about the why, it's also about sequence and setting. Think about it: breaking eggs, dumping in flour. These are totally meaningless actions on their own. They only make sense inside the story of a recipe, in a very specific order and in the right place, like a kitchen, not, the middle of a philosophy lecture. So for MacIntyre, this whole idea gets way bigger than just ducks and cakes. It's about our entire lives. To live a good, a virtuous life, you need a story. You need a narrative that ties it all together: your birth, your life, your death, into one unified, meaningful whole. Without that story, we're just adrift. Okay, so this might sound like some pretty abstract philosophy, but how does it actually apply to us, right here, right now? Well, it turns out that modern psychology has been digging into this exact same idea. And what they're finding is that the story we tell about ourselves has a massive impact on our well-being. Psychologists have a term for it too: narrative identity. It's that constantly evolving story you tell yourself about yourself inside your own head. It's how you weave together everything: your past experiences, who you are today, and who you hope to become, into a story that makes sense. If someone asks, "Who are you?" the answer is your story. And what's fascinating is that a researcher named Dan McAdams found that most of our life stories tend to fall into two big buckets. First, you've got redemptive stories. These are the ones that go from bad to good. Think, that terrible experience actually taught me something valuable. Then you have contamination stories, which are the opposite. They go from good to bad. Everything was perfect, and then disaster struck. Now here's a really powerful example of a redemptive story. A woman, let's call her Ava, was looking back on 26 years in an abusive marriage. But she didn't tell a story about being a victim. No. Instead, she framed it as the story of how she learned to save herself. She took all that suffering and reframed it into this incredible narrative of her own strength and empowerment. And the type of story you tell literally changes your life. I mean, the research on this is so clear. People who craft these redemptive narratives about their lives consistently report that their lives feel more meaningful, they're more motivated to help others, and they have better mental health. The story you tell actually shapes your reality. So if stories are this fundamental to what makes us human, to our intelligence, our morals, our happiness, it brings up a really fascinating question for our modern age. What about the ultimate non-human intelligence? Can an AI ever truly understand a story? Yeah, I know it's a huge leap, but it's a totally logical one, right? We're building these incredible machines that can process language better than any human ever could. But can they actually get the very thing that makes us smart? Can they understand the narrative, the context, the why behind the words?
This table really breaks down the difference. See, we humans reason through narrative. We're always looking for the why. But large language models, or LLMs, they don't do that. They are masters of statistics, of recognizing patterns to predict what word comes next. So what we get is comprehension on our side and simulation on their side.
So yeah, an LLM can write a beautiful story. It can write a poem that makes you cry, but it doesn't understand it. It has no idea what the characters are feeling or what the moral of the story is. It's like an incredibly sophisticated parrot, mimicking human intelligence without actually having any real comprehension.
But there's a new frontier on the horizon. It's called neurosymbolic AI. And the whole goal is to bridge this very gap. The idea is to combine the pattern matching power of today's AI with the kind of logical, symbolic reasoning that we use. They're trying to teach AI not just what comes next, but why it comes next, to finally give it a piece of that narrative puzzle.
Okay, so we've gone from ancient philosophy to modern psychology, all the way to the future of AI. But this all comes back to one incredibly powerful and personal idea. If narrative is this important, then you have a real role to play in the story that's being told. I just love this quote from McIntyre. It's such a great way to think about it. He's saying, we're not the only authors of our lives. We're all born into stories we didn't start, with situations we can't control. But we're like co-authors. We're mad-libbers. We get to fill in the blanks at the most important moments and help steer the narrative.
So let's just tie this all together. The big picture is this. Stories are kind of everything. Our arguments feel so broken because we don't have a shared story anymore. Our own personal happiness literally depends on the kind of story we tell about our own lives. And the entire future of intelligence might just depend on whether we can teach a machine how to understand a story.
Which, of course, brings us to the final, and really the most important question of all. The story of your life is still being written. You're holding the pen. So, what are you going to write in the next chapter?